October 1962, a Soviet captain beneath the Caribbean holds the nuclear codes in his hands, and he's already made his choice. What you're about to hear isn't in most textbooks. The Cuban Missile Crisis, 13 days in October when the world held its breath, has a footnote so buried, so classified for decades, that even Cold War historians missed it. It involves a submarine, a freighter, and a man who was ready to end civilization rather than back down. Let's rewind. October 14, 1962. A U-2 spy plane photographs Soviet missiles on the beaches of Cuba, 90 miles from Florida. President Kennedy learns about it on the 16th. By the 22nd, he's on television telling America that Soviet offensive weapons are being deployed to the Western Hemisphere. Blockade, quarantine, the language of crisis. But here's what most people don't know. Kennedy's inner circle wasn't just worried about missiles already in Cuba. They were terrified of what was still coming. Soviet freighters were crossing the Atlantic, cargo ships loaded with warheads, tactical nuclear weapons, and something else entirely, the submarine carrying them. The Poltava, that's the name of the freighter, right here in the declassified records, 1962, Soviet designation, heading west, and inside her cargo hold beneath tons of military equipment was a nuclear warhead. Not a missile, a warhead, the kind you could arm a torpedo with, the kind a submarine captain might use if he felt cornered. The submarine shadowing it, following orders from Moscow, was the B-59, Soviet designation, and her captain was Valentin Savitsky. This man right here had been given standing orders that would reshape history if he followed them. Orders that said, if you're attacked, if you're depth charged, if you lose contact with Moscow, you use the nuclear torpedo. You don't ask permission, you respond. Now here's where it gets complicated and where the history everyone knows breaks down. The US Navy didn't know about the nuclear torpedo, not officially. They knew there were submarines, they knew they were Soviet, but the tactical nuclear weapons aboard, that was classified Soviet intelligence, hidden, compartmentalized, unknown to the American blockade commanders. October 27th, the Poltava is still crossing the Atlantic. The B-59 is escorting her, and the US Navy task force in the Caribbean, they're detecting something on their sonar. A Soviet submarine in their quarantine zone, violating the blockade. The destroyer escort USS B starts dropping depth charges, signaling the submarine to surface. Savitsky doesn't surface. He's been hit, the submarine's damaged, communications down, and in the captain's quarters in his mind one thought crystallizes: Moscow isn't responding, the Americans are attacking, this is war, the orders were clear, the authority was his, the nuclear torpedo was loaded, ready. But Savitsky wasn't alone in that submarine. There was another officer. A second captain, a political officer named Vasili Arkhipov, and Arkhipov did something that's almost impossible to imagine in that moment. He disagreed. He refused to authorize the launch. He said no to his commanding officer, in the middle of the Cold War, with depth charges exploding around them. This telegram right here, declassified in the 1990s, shows what happened next. Savitsky and Arkhipov argued, not in whispers, in front of the crew. The tension was suffocating. One man wanted to end the world, the other wanted to live, and for reasons that still aren't entirely clear, perhaps respect for Archipov's rank, perhaps doubt, perhaps exhaustion, Savitsky stood down. He ordered the submarine to surface. The B-59 broke the surface. The USS was waiting, no shots fired, no nuclear torpedo launched. The Poltava continued westward undetected, her warhead still secure in her hold, and the world for the moment didn't end. Here's what's remarkable: Kennedy and Khrushchev never knew how close it actually was. The full details stayed classified for over 30 years. The Poltava eventually returned to the Soviet Union without delivering her cargo. The crisis ended 6 days later. But the mechanism that nearly triggered nuclear war, a single captain, a single refusal, a single moment of human judgment that was almost invisible to history. Arkhipov lived another 40 years. He retired from the Soviet Navy with honors. He died in 1998, largely unknown outside military circles. No monuments, no parades, just a man who said no at the exact moment when the world needed him to. The Poltava, she was scrapped in the 1970s. No museum, no memorial, just a cargo ship that carried a warhead across an ocean and somehow became a footnote in the biggest story of the 20th century. The museum doesn't have her on display, but the documents do. And if you look closely at the declassified files, you'll see her name, her course, her cargo, all the proof that the Cuban Missile Crisis wasn't just about missiles in Cuba. It was about a freighter that almost changed everything, about a submarine captain who blinked, about a political officer who refused to press a button, about the razor's edge between annihilation and another day, and about how the most consequential moments in history often happen in places nobody's watching. The files are still being declassified, new details emerge every few years, and every time they do, the same question resurfaces. How many other moments like this happen that we'll never know about? How many submarines, how many captains, how many decisions between war and peace were made in the dark? The answer, probably, is more than we're comfortable knowing. If you want to understand how fragile the Cold War really was, how close we came more than once to something we can't come back from, this is where you start. Not with the famous moments everyone remembers, but with the freighters, the submarines, the men who made choices when the world wasn't watching. Subscribe, there's a declassified near-miss every week that rewrites what you thought you knew about the Cold War.